All right, moving rapidly along the highway of learning here, right, in this chapter on political participation and things of that nature, okay? So we're on slide number 62 here, and we're going to talk about, again, why people do and do not get involved as much in America in 2020, okay? One of the challenges is that is individualism, okay? Individualism is a good thing, you know. Again, we've talked about this in earlier chapters where, you know, the ability of pilgrims and settlers and explorers and entrepreneurs, right, to be able to, hey, in America, if you work really hard, you can achieve great things. Don't consider yourself a victim, right? Go for it, right? That's a big part of the American experience, okay? It's imperfect, but that's a big part of it. The downside of it is when everyone turns inward, right? And I don't really care about the you know, civil society. You know, again, I'm just going to hang out in my basement and play video games all the time. Okay, I'm caricature here, but you know what I'm saying. That idea that takes away from a healthy society and a healthy republic. Okay, so there's a couple of quotes here from a book called The Essential Civil Society Reader. It talks about one of the problems within America. Here's one of them. If democracy was hoisted upon the examination table and its contents subjected to clinical inspection, the examination would reveal a body riddled with disabling viruses. Typically cited by civil society analysts are declining rates of voter participation, civic illiteracy, weak public deliberation, the rise of narrow and polarizing interest group politics, and the domination of public policymaking by money. Okay, I tend to agree with them. I think this is part of the malady of the problem, you know, and so it you know, it hinders people getting involved. Okay, you know, and he talks about some of the weaknesses between liberals and conservatives. Okay, liberals, for their part, okay, again, we're talking about individualism. A person is simply the bearer of ever multiplying legal rights, expressive rights, and lifestyle freedoms, without regard to the legitimate prerogatives of the social group or the need for social order and restraint. In other words, give me my rights. I'm homosexual. I'm this disadvantaged group. I'm this minority group, okay? In other words, what he's saying is, listen, we understand that, but the problem with that is that in vying for your rights, you don't care about the larger society. It's all about you and your rights and what you want, and the need for perhaps some restraints in our culture. Okay? Flip this, look at conservatives. Again, some of their weaknesses, okay? The person is mostly a consumer in an unfettered marketplace. That's what people, in other words, just the market, don't hinder the market, okay? And so they advocate economic freedom as the sole basis for a good society. As long as you got free stuff, not free stuff, as long as you've got stuff, as long as the market continues, we never hinder the markets. That's the measure of a man. In other words, stuff, the accumulation of stuff is the measure of a man, according to conservatives, okay? That's not healthy, okay? Liberals, what's the measure of a man? More and more rights and more equality, okay? You know, a pox upon both your houses, so to speak, right? In other words, these are some of the weaknesses, and this hinders a healthy civil society and political involvement, is basically what he's saying, okay? And one of the hindrances is this idea of voluntary associations, okay? The ability and the behavior of individuals to get involved in, again, voluntary association. That's what made America great in its beginnings, okay? When I'm talking about voluntary organization, what are you talking about? I'm talking about, you know, clubs and civic organizations and churches, okay? In other words, you volunteer your time, your free time, right, off of work to get involved in the community in some way, or, you know, and you help people, okay? In other words, the more you have in a society of those types of groups, the healthier it is. The less you have, what happens is the state's got to step in and do more for you, okay? So here's, again, a quote from Alexis de Tocqueville in Democracy in America, okay? And that's one of the things he noticed when he first came to the United States, is he realized, my goodness, there's all kinds of voluntary groups all over the place, and it makes this country really, really healthy. I don't see that in France. So he said this. He said in slide 64, I wish to speak of those political associations with the aid of which men seek to defend themselves against the despotic action of a majority or against the encroachments of royal power. In other words, what protects you from the government getting into your chili? Okay? Volunteer organizations, because you got groups that are organized together, there's pushback against the state. It is clear that if each citizen, as he becomes individually weaker and consequently more incapable in isolation of preserving his freedom, he does not learn the art of uniting with those like him to defend it, tyranny will necessarily grow with equality. Okay? And so he goes on to talk about these volunteer organizations and why they're so healthy. Here, going to the next slide, here it is a question only of the associations that are formed in civil life and which have an object that is in no way political. In other words, the more groups you're in that are non-political, that's a healthy thing. Americans of all ages, all conditions, all minds constantly unite. Not only do they have commercial and industrial associations in which they all take part, but they also have 1,000 other kinds: religious, moral, grave, feudal, very general, very particular, immense, and very small. Americans use associations to give fetes, to found seminaries, to build inns, to raise churches, to distribute books, to send missionaries to the antipodes. Who uses the word antipodes anymore? In this manner, they create hospitals, prisons, and schools. Finally, if it is a question of bringing to light a truth or developing a sentiment with the support of a great example, they associate, okay? So again, this idea that when that happens, it's a very healthy thing in society, because again, it forms a barrier against everything being politicized, okay? These are healthy things. And they give examples of volunteer associations. Maybe you've been involved in them, okay? On slide number 66, charities, foundations, the Bill Gates Foundation, right? Giving all kinds of money to, in this case, dealing with some COVID-19 issues. Social welfare organizations, advocacy groups, faith-based organizations, community groups, recreational sports, okay? These are all healthy things, okay? The idea that the more you've got, the healthier it is, okay? And I'll show you why. Look at slide number 67, okay? These institutions, these volunteer organizations in civil society, they do three things. Number one, they mediate between the individual and large mega structures of the market and the state. Okay, they mediate. Okay, they provide again a buffer. Again, think big business. Think big social media, right? Twitter, Facebook. Okay, a lot of people think they don't have a voice on Facebook or Twitter. Okay, how do you get a voice? If you unite in different associations, okay? Number two, they create important social capital. They give you a voice. And number three, they impart democratic values and habits. They're on-ramps to democracy, okay? For example, where I live, I'm in a homeowners association. I am the secretary. And so this is an association of people within a neighborhood. We have our own president, vice president, and secretary and treasurer, and we basically form a voice, and we vote, and we decide on things. And again, it's a small group, okay? It's a small neighborhood, but the point is, it's a little bitty microcosm of democracy at large, okay? And the idea that de Tocqueville was talking about, the more people you get in groups like this that learn how to vote, learn how to make decisions, learn how to listen to other people, learn how to listen to others who have contrary opinions, and you can accord them respect and dignity even as you disagree with them. That's a good thing. That's a healthy thing, okay? And the more you get of that, again, if you look at slides 68 and 69, okay? In 1900, again, you saw these slides before. The more of the private sector you have, the more of civil society you have, the more of kind of voluntary associations, you have a larger gap there of freedom, okay? You see the size of government. And then you look at the size of government in 2013. You see how government's gotten a lot bigger, and the private sector, or this idea where you've got voluntary associations not connected to government, it's a lot smaller, okay? According to political theorists, American society is less healthy today than in prior eras because of that issue, okay? And then you can see in slide number 70 here, if that helps you maybe, is you can see where all of these mediating institutions, again, provide a buffer for the people against the encroachment of the state. And they show family, extended family, churches, schools, unions, PTA, neighborhood associations, okay? And then I'll let you just read, the next 2 or 3 slides there about thinning civil society, thickening state, okay? Is that, again, one of the earmarks for America in the 21st century is civil society is getting smaller and the state's getting larger, and that's not a good thing, okay? A popular book that was out a few years ago is a book by Robert Putnam called Bowling Alone. And what he argues is Americans are doing things alone. Whereas you'd have all kinds of bowling leagues and groups that would get together to bowl, they're finding out that people are still bowling today, but they're bowling alone, okay? So there's less apt to get involved in a group. They're less apt to get involved in an association. They're less apt to get involved in a church or a PTA or some type of organization, volunteer organization. And so the tendency today is the state has to get thicker and stronger and more involved in everyday life. So everything is now politicized, okay? Again, check your average news report or newspaper today, okay? Watch Fox News, watch CNN, okay? Everything is politicized. That is an example of the fact that we've got a thinning civil society and we've got a thickening state, and, well, it doesn't help that it's an election year, okay? So anyway, I'll leave you with that, and I encourage you to check this out, and if you got any questions, as always, ask. I'll be happy to help you if I can. Thanks.